Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Caught on the Mic. I'm stoked about this one. I've told several stories throughout the history of the show in almost a 200 episode run where I've talked about the catalyst, what brought me from where I was in Iowa to living in Omaha, Nebraska. I talk about my love of 311. I talk about my time in the music scene in both Des Moines and Omaha. But what I don't talk about is this time in 1997, I was singing in a 9-piece ska band, but we also did other covers. And one of the covers we did was a song called Tendency from an Omaha, Nebraska-based badass band called Blue Moon Ghetto. Everybody loves Blue Moon Ghetto. You might know of them from their hit song, Shine All the Time. There's a nice mythos to the band itself that maybe not everybody knows of. Today, I have the privilege of having Mr. Matt Banta. He is going to talk about his new projects, the Omaha Music Group, and Space to Play, a new project of his that's going to have a album that comes out in September. Matt, how the heck are you, man?
I'm doing very well. Thanks, Mike. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. We were just talking before I press record about how crazy it is, all the years I spent in Omaha and all the years you've been active in Omaha, that we never crossed paths.
Yeah, that is odd. But, life is stranger than fiction, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's crazy. It's almost like there was kind of a baton passing. I mean, that era from, I'd say 1995 to 2005, a lot of people talk about how Saddle Creek Records was putting the spotlight on Omaha and it was going to be the next Seattle. But a lot of people in, other places other than Omaha don't realize we had a very good contemporary mainstream music scene going that was hot as an iron as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, 94 to 98 was Blue Moon Ghetto's run.
Yeah.
Initially we obviously reunited in 2014, but don't want to go down that rabbit trail right now. But basically back in those days, it became, there was a lot more places to play. But we would work with the other bands that were playing, like Secret Skin and Grasshopper Takeover, Old Boy Network, all those bands back in that time period. And we would just get together and try to put together shows. So it was 3 bands trying to get people to show up and not just one, and we were very collaborative in that. And eventually the original music scene in Omaha took over all the clubs and bars and stuff so much that there were cover bands that were trying to be original bands, which is like unheard of, so it was pretty special time. It was lightning in a bottle kind of, stuff. But, so I was really, feel really lucky and blessed to have been able to be a part of it.
Well, let's kind of take it back a little bit. If you're comfortable with it, let's talk a little bit about the genesis of Blue Moon Ghetto and kind of how you established your presence in the Omaha music scene, because now this is a career that's kind of spanned. I'm not going to say the number of how many years, because
I appreciate that.
I'm going to age both of us here and we're both going to feel like shit after we're done.
Well, I mean, you already do the math,
right? Absolutely.
Or it's 2025. I mean, it's, it is what it is. But.
Dude, I had Ryan Cabrera on yesterday, and he and I were talking about his hit On the Way Down, which was co-written by Johnny Resnick, and that was a hit in 2004. And I opened the episode with, I'm like, so how does it feel to know your biggest hit is now Old Enough to Drink? And he's like, dude, I hadn't thought about it in that way yet.
Hey, it kind of started. I had moved up to Minneapolis in 1992 to try to play music up there, and obviously it didn't work out because I ended up back in Omaha. But and then it started with just hanging the old school. You hang a flyer at whatever music store, and it's got the little phone number. You rip off the phone number, and you're looking for a bass player. You're looking for a drummer. That's completely foreign to anybody that's not old enough to have been there.
I get it.
So I hung a flyer in a music store, and originally that was where I met Dean, the original guitar player, who actually, he was the one that wrote Tendency.
Right.
And interesting story about that song, it was originally called Blue Moon Ghetto.
Huh.
and we got a gig um, before we even had a name. And so we were like, well, we got to come up with a name because I think we were playing at Sharky's. And that was the first time we were playing with the four original members with Joel, Matt, McClure, and Dean Galliano. And we had a gig at Sharky's, had no name. So we were like, well, Dean was just like, well, what about like Blue Moon Ghetto? We could just change the name of that to something else, and so we did. And that's how the name came about. Um, yeah, I mean, it's so that's how it kind of started. And it was funny because our first gigs, Joel came back to a practice and said, I got a 17 gigs. I'm like, how'd you get 17 gigs in one afternoon? Oh, well, they're all at the Saddle Creek Bar. And we're like, oh, okay. So, but they started this penny pitcher thing uh,
Mhm.
Thursdays where they charge $6 and you'd get in and pennies. I mean, a pitcher was a penny, literally.
Right.
And so it was Saddle Creek I mean, the structure I think is still there. I don't know what it is now, but it was centrally located to, Creighton, UNO kind of. So we just started flyering cars at UNO, at Creighton. We did so far as to hang a sheet off of that bridge on Dodge Street,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
that says, penny pitchers tonight, South Creek. So but it blew up and to the point where we were like, we need more money or we're going to take this somewhere else. And they're like, nope. So then it was like a bidding war between several different places to try to get us to come and do penny pitchers. So the penny pitchers thing was a huge part of getting Blue Moon Ghetto started and the traction we got. And it was a lot of it was because we were trying to play stuff with a groove to it that would get the girls up dancing. You got a
Right.
chance, So that was our whole thought process on that. But that's really how it started.
Right. And then eventually the Ranch Bowl adopted the whole penny pitchers thing. And
Yeah, they were the ones that Matt Markle, he was the one that bid the most money to get us to do it every week. But he wanted us to do it at Jones Street, which is
mm,
downtown, which is not as good of a location, not as good of a place. And we're like, no, we're not doing it. No, we'll do it at Ranch Bowl, but not at Jones Street.
yeah.
So he eventually caved, and you know, yeah. So yeah, that's the penny pitcher thing. And man, those Thursdays at the Ranch Bowl were some of the most fun gigs I've ever played.
Well, you saw the lack of shock on my face when you told the story of Joel Casera like booking 17 gigs in
Yeah,
one sitting.
yeah,
That guy that guy at his best was always a hustler as far as booking. And like gosh, like back in those days playing music, like everybody could have learned a little bit of something about how ambitious he was at that time.
yeah.
So you had some lineup changes, obviously. Shine All the Time, that hit radio locally in what, 96 or 97?
I think it was 96 primarily, 95
Yeah.
into 96. 96 was kind of the pinnacle, I think, of you know our popularity.
So how did that come about?
What the just shine all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there was the river was doing a local music thing, and we got some stuff played on there. We had John, our manager, was music director at the Edge. He wasn't the program director, so he did not get the song played. But I think somebody maybe called it. People started calling in and requesting it because I think it was actually Z92 that picked it up first, and I don't remember how that happened.
Right.
I know we went on Todd and Tyler a lot, back then. Um, and yeah, it was a really cool experience of being on Todd and Tyler, and then an old high school classmate of mine called into the show and said he was sitting at a red light and there was like 7 cars and every single one of them was listening to Shine All the Time at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just like that was really, really special and very unique to experience that even on a local level.
Yeah.
That's something that I've kind of had to come to terms with over my career is like for a long, there's periods of time when you're like, dang, that song, I cannot get past that song. Nobody wants to hear anything but that song. Like, and you become kind of resentful towards it, but then you kind of grow past that and realize, anybody that is able to have a song like that do anything, you should be thankful for that, you know.
Yes, it's kind of the age grows your gratitude at the same time, because you know, as we get older, and this is again something I talked about on a few recent episodes, is just relationship with nostalgia, how it changes as you get older and you look back, and the things that you used to think were burdensome or stupid
Mhm.
were actually blessings in disguise, and like great experiences that you get to carry that are unique to you.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And it was unheard of. It was unheard of for a local band to be in regular rotation on the radio station in the mid 90s. Like, it became commonplace post 2000, kind of like that 2001 era of the Ranch
Mhm.
Bowl and beyond, but that's very unique situation to be in.
Yeah, it was cool, and it was pretty much all just a groundswell of support. It was just, you know, like all I could do is thank the people that were calling in and asking for it to be played, you know, and just like, you know, maybe we could have something like that happen again. You know, it'd be cool. But
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
like it doesn't really. Yeah, I guess the thing I always remember is when I wrote that song. I think it was I was still living in the house I grew up in, and it was several years before Blue Moon Ghetto became a band or anything. And every time I would try to play with other guys, at some point that song would come up, and they always wanted to play that song. If I say, well, I have this one, you know, I would play it, and so it just never would go away. And I was always kind of like, I didn't understand why, because I remember when I wrote it, my mom even said, you know, it's really repetitive. I'm like, well, I was kind of going for that, so good, you know. But yeah, I want to say I was 18 or 19. Nah, I was probably 19 or 20, you know, when I wrote that, maybe. But yeah, it was interesting. It just never went away. And then there was just something about it that people really could identify with. You know, I can't explain it any other way than that.
So, with that song kind of hitting a groundswell in 1996, bleeding into 1997, because that's when we found, my friends and I found you guys. Actually, it was our buddy. He had a copy of your first CD. He was going to Drake University
Oh yeah,
in Des Moines.
yeah.
He had a copy of your CD. He came back to our little small town in Southwest Iowa. He's like, check these guys out. And we listened to that album front to back. We wore it out. Um, and you know, it was the coolest thing for us, you know. I, like I said, it was a 9-piece band. We got to experience, you know, playing with Slipknot, who was the local band in Des Moines at the time,
Right.
and then bouncing back and forth to different small towns in Iowa. It just felt like a really special time. You say Blue Moon Ghetto came to a close in 1998.
Yeah.
um what was kind of the fever pitch in that moment where you kind of knew, this is my inflection point, this is time to kind of bring it to a close?
Yeah. There was a obviously it's never one thing, uh,
Right.
you know, but there were multiple factors. You know, we had changed bass players, we had changed guitar players, and then Bruce started Clever,
Right.
um, and he was willing to do both. And I'm like, no, dude, your focus is on Clever. You can tell. I think you just need to focus on that. So,
Right.
and I've, you know, wasn't no hard feelings or anything. I mean, he just, you know, if that's where your heart takes you, you know, it is what it is. But so we were looking for our third bass player. I was kind of, not to be melodramatic, but kind of having an existential crisis. I felt like I couldn't be my. I would say to John sometimes, like, I can't be John Denver on one song and then the lead singer of the Deftones on the next song. Like,
Right.
I do it. This is. It was kind of like I was musically split, my personality, and like it wasn't fully integrated. And so I had these songs that were more intimate and tender and you know, more acoustic, you know, and then but then this pressure to, y'all, you got to play something that rocks, man, you
Right.
know, and you know, and it's just like, and I just wanted to be a singer songwriter, you know, so I had this draw, you know, like maybe it's just time for me to try to make a record and just, you know, but yeah, so it was a lot of things, but that's kind of in a nutshell the multiple factors, I guess.
I'm going to share a moment of kinship with you in that same regard. The very last show my last band played was one of the big 89.7 The River festivals.
Oh
We
yeah.
got to play with Avenged Sevenfold and 3 Days Grace.
What was the name of the band?
That band was Ara Sing. It was the last project I did, and it was probably the funny part was I don't want to call it a prank, but I spent all of these years like trying to grind, trying to do it, trying to do the thing and get breakthrough and what have you. 2006, I find out, okay, my first wife was pregnant with my daughter. I'm about to be a dad. It's time to focus all of my energy on being a dad.
Right.
I walked away from music, but 9 months into her pregnancy, right before my daughter was born, I was like, all I'm doing is sitting around the house watching Scrubs reruns and getting fat. So so I started another band, and my buddy and I, we were like, okay, we're only going to play one show every 6 to 8 weeks. We're going to be very strategic about this. We're not trying to do anything other than just keep ourselves busy. And where I say that the prank happened was I'm in dad life, I'm in day job career life. That band ends up being the most successful band of any band I'd ever been a part of, and
Oh
it lasted 5 years. But
yeah.
where I say the kinship happens is that last show, that Avenged Sevenfold show, I was walking around West Ferry Amphitheater and I thought to myself, man, I'm not even listening to this style of music anymore because it was heavier rock. I'm like listening to Jay-Z and Ryan Adams and not feeling a bit of what I'm playing anymore. And I couldn't let myself do something that was insincere any longer. And I felt better about walking away from it. So like I said, it's almost very similar
Yep.
to
Yeah.
your story,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just sometimes it's just, like, what was that movie about the band that's kind of like the Beatles with
Oh,
Tom
that thing
Hanks?
you do.
Huh?
That thing you do.
Yeah, that thing you do, and that guy, he's talking to that guy, he's like, bands break up, man. He's like, that was the explanation. He's like, bands break up,
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
so I mean,
Yes.
that's just kind of the truth. That's why if I talk to younger guys or girls or whoever that is playing music and they ask for any kind of advice, I always say, well, make sure you play with people that you can stand to be around. Make sure that the personality match is almost more important than the musical match.
Yeah.
Like, because if you have any experience of success at all, any foundational problems you got are going to be amplified. Not made to go away. It's not going to spackle over the crack in the foundation. It's just going to spread the crack, and the whole thing is going to collapse.
Right.
And that's kind of what happened with Blue Moon Ghetto too. I mean, we were young and didn't really know what we were doing. I mean, we got super popular and had no, we were like, what the, and it took us a while to come around to like, we got to practice every day. We got to take this seriously. And, but once you get into that, it's like all the little things that you didn't have to really face with the people you're around. If you're around them all the time, there's like, you can't get away from it. You got to deal with it,
Oh yeah.
so it's, it's just bands break up.
Yeah. So myths and legends be damned. Was there label interest at one point in time in Blue Moon Ghetto?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. We were we were offered a demo deal by Atlantic Records by the guy that signed Sugar Ray, same
Yeah.
guy. And we kind of had our own team of managers at the time who would, basically advised us to not take it and just keep playing. And so we can have more leverage when the time comes to sign, which I understand the thought process, but obviously you look back and you're like, what would have happened if we would have just taken a demo deal, but yeah, that was we had interest from other people. We had, other people, other label representatives coming and see us play and, things like that. But that was the closest we got.
Yeah. Dave from Pomeroy and I had this conversation because I remember when they were at their peak of basically living at the Ranch Bowl,
Right.
and he cleared it up whenever I had him on the show. The thing with the A&R reps is they want to sign an act, but they want to mold the act into what they think is marketable for that moment in time.
Right.
So they had, from what Dave tells me, they had one A&R looking at them saying, we want to create the next Linkin Park, but have them based out of Omaha. And then they had another label rep going, we want to create the next Maroon 5 and have them be out of Omaha, to where it's kind of crazy. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're not interested in the product as it exists, then why are you even sniffing around?
Yeah. 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 It's interesting how that, and now the A&R person's basically doesn't even exist now. I mean, they're,
No, it's Spotify. Spotify is your A&R anymore. Spotify and social media, which is absolutely crazy. And again, another topic that's come up on the pod a lot lately is how people blur lanes, genre lanes now because of Spotify. It's actually the only silver lining. You take away the BS pay, platform, but like, kids listen to music and they don't look at things as genre. They look at things as just being damn music. How awesome would that have been back in our heyday?
yeah. Yeah. It would have been, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say how that would have affected anything, but it is interesting with, that's good for me just as a songwriter, because I've always been kind of schizophrenic as a songwriter. I mean, you know, I write in a lot of different genres, like I have a lot of different feels and I don't really even think about it as genres as much as rhythmic feels. And,
Right.
um, a lot of times those rhythmic feels fall into certain genres, but, yeah, like that's where the name Space to Play came from. Was, we're playing music, we're just trying to make great art. We don't want any rules on what kind of genre we have to stick to or anything from one song to the next. So there's a song on this record coming out that sounds almost like country, because there's steel guitar. It could totally play on a country station. And then we've got like heavy blues rock. We have another one that has like a loop and it almost like house music. So it's like, it's freeing. I wonder sometimes if it makes it harder to market, but you know, at this point, with, like you said, so much of it is just in the hands of the potential listener.
Right.
So maybe if you have a bunch of different genres, you can be on a bunch of different playlists. Wow. But we'll see.
I love that. And I love that you kind of set up my segue for me perfectly, because
Hey,
I
I'm
think
here to help you, Mike.
well, I mean, that brings the past to a good close and answers any questions that anybody might have had that they've just been afraid to ask, or
Yeah.
haven't had the opportunity to ask before. Blue Moon Ghetto revival occurred in 2014. I was at your secret warm-up show. I think it was at Barfly,
Yeah.
and on 2014, and that was awesome. And then you guys evolved into this new project, Space to Play.
Yep.
Let's talk about what the genesis of that project is and bring it to where we are right now.
In 2020, obviously nobody was playing anywhere. So, and we were just kind of practicing in my basement just to keep our chops up. And we started writing new stuff. And then we made a change at drummer. That was kind of the splitting up of Joel from the whole project. He went a different direction, but which is neither here nor there. But at that point is when Scott Evans joined the band on drums. Okay, so now it's just me that was in Blue Moon Ghetto, and Kevin and Clint and Scott all, so we went out and we played a few shows at Blue Moon Ghetto. And we still do that once a year. It's a nostalgic thing, like you said.
Right.
But during that period of time, we started writing this music, and I'm just like, man, this is not Blue Moon Ghetto. This music is different. There's a different spirit to it, a different feel to it, because it's different people, and the three of them, I just loved playing with them and jamming on ideas with them, because it was so collaborative, and there was absolutely no ego. Nobody cared about what part they got to play or if it was a cool enough drum fill here. It was all about the song. And so we started writing songs, and we would jam on something, and then a week later I'd come back and be like, okay, I got a song.
That's
And then we would
awesome.
jam on something else, and like the next day or the next time I'd try to bring that back, and before I got that idea done, we'd already have another idea going. And it was like, so it just steamrolled into having enough material where, this song has 11 the album has 11 songs on it when it's released, and there's 2 songs that didn't even make it. So we had 13 songs.
Whoa.
And so when the time came to make a record, just because of, basically God being good to me, financially, I was in a position to where like, I don't have to go cheap on this. I could like really make a legitimate record. And that involved, in my mind, hiring a producer. And so, because none of us had ever really worked with a formal, like a proper producer.
Right.
It's just an engineer that, can get good sounds, but you're basically just getting a great sounding demo. I mean, that's just what you
That's the
bring in
truth.
is all you're going to get, So, I reached out to Dana Murray, who is friend. He was friends of Mitch Town, who I played in the band with,
Right.
called Thousand Houses. In like, I think that was from 2007 to 2010 or something like that.
Yeah.
They grew up together in the jazz circles. So I reached out to him because I knew he had a studio in his house that was a legitimate studio, and that he was a producer. And I'm like, do you still do producing? And he's like, well, send me a demo. So I sent him a demo of one of the songs. I can't remember which one, it doesn't matter, but he loved it. And he's like, we just kind of started a dialogue. He came over and just hung out with us while we practiced, listened to us practice. We went and hung out at him. He lives in Hawaii, like he's on the lake.
Yeah.
And so maybe I shouldn't stay on here where he lives. That's probably not proper. But he's on a lake. We'll just say that. And so we went and like hung out at his studio, took a boat ride, just got to know each other. And I think he was obviously feeling us out to see how serious we were and to see if he could handle working with us. And so we agreed on a price and we started the process. And, I can't really overstate the impact that he's had on us. It was interesting because like Holding the Gun, that's one of the songs we've released already. I play an electric piano on that, and I wrote that on piano. And when I brought it in, though, it took me like, I think 4 sessions before he was like, okay, that's good enough. Like, and I wasn't used to that. I was used to just like, oh yeah, that's great. And he's like, no, and so we went through this, we call it boot camp. And a lot of it was all about theories of rhythm, and, grid theory is what we were focused. Like, that's technically what it's called, grid theory. So we started focusing on that, and all of us just like, yeah, he just like broke us down and built us all back up. And so we've all become much stronger musicians because of that, and we're a much better band because of that. And now the process we're in is now we're rehearsing the live show to get ready, and we're going through that again. We gotta get it all sounding just like the record, and we're not there yet, but we're gonna be by September 12th, or we're gonna die trying.
I love that because I mean, to pay a compliment to the other guys in the band, Scott and the Thomas brothers are such good pocket players.
Yes.
They don't slop live. We've all played with people that kind of, you kind of look back at them whenever something kind of goes amiss. Those guys are such clean players to begin with. So to have that heightened elevation with somebody like Dana Murray, oh man, that's exciting.
Well, and it's, when someone's telling you, this and you think about like, okay, this guy played in a band with Norah Jones, like he played with Branford Marsalis and Wynton Marsalis, and he played on Broadway. I mean, the guy probably knows what he's talking about. So we should, and he, I think it's a credit to the band that we were all willing to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And that's really the only way you become great.
Dude, I love that you use that phrase. I use that at least twice a week.
I love it. I love it.
I do. So I won't ever say on the podcast what I do for my day job, but I'll just say I mentor people and I teach people how to manage businesses.
Right.
So I use that term all the time. I'm like, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's the only way you win. And that's the only way you're going to inspire other people.
Yeah. Yep. I actually have a tune that I've written since the record, so it'll be on the next Space to Play record. But that has that as it's time to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. You know,
I
because you never
love that.
and the hook of that song is you never know because you never know what could happen. Like get used to being uncomfortable and just keep trying because you don't know where it's going to lead. It could be somewhere even better than you thought, or maybe not. But I feel like just facing that and embracing it is what separates people that are great from people that are just pretty good.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
So this relationship with Dana as producer has had this metamorphosis,
yeah.
and now you guys are partners in a new project called Omaha Music Group. What was the moment where you said it's time to launch Omaha Music Group, and what can you tell people about what it is?
Well, it really came out of we were working on the record. Dana was out of town and called me from his car. I think he was driving through Kentucky or something. He's like, "Man, I was just driving through, listening to this stuff," and he's like, "When we put this out, maybe you and I should just start a record label." And I'm like, "Let me think about it." Yes, like
Right.
it didn't take me. I had thought about it. I prayed about it. But yeah, obviously his thought was his ear as a producer. He has a killer studio, along with me as a songwriter, being able to mentor other songwriters. What I bring as a songwriter. With those two things, we could really invest in people and develop them because that's one thing that really there is no development. Like if it isn't quite right, well, AI will fix the rest of it. Like there's just not, you don't see a lot of that.
Right.
And so we were just, the idea being like, let's go the opposite direction, and say, no, we're going to find somebody. And the good thing is we had the Space to Play project to start with. So now
Mhm.
as we're doing this, I'm kind of learning all this stuff and we're building a template of how we could repeat this with other artists, And so, but yeah, the idea behind it is to invest in people that need to be developed but have potential, and also to raise the standard. I think Omaha is like that. Omaha is a town where it's very easy to get comfortable and just
Yes.
like, well, this is what I do, and I've been there. I'm not saying from a person and a place of judgment. I've had those moments in my own life where I'm like, yeah, I've done enough. Like, I'll just play every once in a while, just so I don't go nuts. But you just kind of like, but then you just at some point you got to decide: am I going to just start slowly dying, or am I going to start learning and improving every day until I die? You know, and that's ultimately you got to find people that are about that, that all
Yeah.
are about always growing, never feeling comfortable, never being satisfied. And that's rare to find.
So elevating standards, that would kind of be one of your mini mission statements, elevating standards, developing artists. So how will artists feel that difference within the first 90 days, say, of working with you and Dana?
Well, I think they'll probably, if they last that long, they'll they'll just be very much aware of where there still needs to be growth and what they need to work on. And that's the thing is like the thing that I've realized is and part of this is once we started this project I'm like over 2 years now because we started recording with Dana. I practice almost every day. Like
Right.
I don't miss a lot of days, and so I'm repping stuff every day. And I'm like, and you start doing that and you see yourself getting better, but then you're also like, man, it's never going to feel like I'm there. And I think that people that are great, that are truly great, never feel like they've arrived, and
Yeah.
so it's getting people in that mindset. That I would hope that would be what would be the biggest change within working with us for 3 months or whatever you said. But it's
Yeah.
just to get in that mindset to realize, okay, I got to just embrace being broken down and rebuilt,
Right. So are you prospecting talent, or are you kind of scouting for it, or are you just launching the project?
We've had conversations about different people. It's just You know, some of the people we've talked to, it's like, you know, it's just it hasn't been the right fit yet.
Right.
But part of that is also because we are still trying to figure out what the heck we're doing in the first place. So
Yeah.
we haven't placed a big emphasis on that yet because I think once we get this record out, you know, we get out and play a little bit. You know, I've got a guy that's, you know, be going to book the band, and I found somebody that's going to book the band, and so we're going to try to get out and play around the Midwest and stuff. And we just need to get kind of that whole process
Right.
sussed out. And that doesn't preclude us from starting a process with somebody else. It's just a big part of why we haven't been real aggressive about that is because we've been focused on just like, okay, who is the team? What is the structure here? How are we doing this? What is our process? You know, and my, I own a company that processes insurance claims. So, and I've owned it since 2020, and so it's weird because I feel like God has kind of prepared me to do a record label just because I've learned how to manage people and put teams together and who goes where and what, you know. And so as much as I, you know, really wasn't excited about like spearheading a record label, you know, because it was so much of it is unknown, you know. It's been a really good process and I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's hard enough to wear one hat, let alone two.
Yeah.
So I mean, mad respect to you for that because you know, Space to Play is gonna be a monolith of a project. You know, like you got great players, a great foundation with given your past history, your bandmates' past history, before you even set foot in this arena of this new record label.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I hope that really, I mean, my biggest goal of the record label is to be able to pour what I learned into somebody else, into other people to, you know, and write for other people because there's some people that need songs and that, you know, and I have always been a prolific songwriter. I mean, I have a lot of songs that have never been released. You know, just because of whatever reason, you know, I have a whole album of kind of like alt country stuff that I did that I didn't even put out. I didn't like
Yeah.
how it turned out, so it's just shelved. So um, but yeah, it using those songs, like I know I feel like nothing is wasted. So there's gotta be a reason. So at some point, you know, there'll be somewhere I can pour that music into or just, you know, mentoring someone as they're writing or whatever, you know, that's I just want to be able to.
Yes. That was actually where I was going to go with the next question is like, you know, given this bevy of experience, past, present, and current, um, how important is mentorship to you? Because it does seem like it's very important to you.
Part of you is always kind of like, well, why in the hell would anybody care what I have to say anyway? You know, like and we all have those thoughts in our, you know, but um when we started doing down at Noma, we've started doing a songwriter showcase once a month.
Hmm.
And meeting all these songwriters that are younger and stuff has been really cool. And there's a lot of talent, you know, that you can see where it's talent that's not fully developed. You know, it's the songwriting, you know, and I have the benefit of, you know, time. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I have been writing songs since I was 17. So like that's what I always wanted to do. That was my passion from the jump was writing. Like I love songwriting and it's just the experience that there's nothing else like it. And so um I think I lost my train of thought there, but
I know you answered that perfectly.
I but no, I mean I want to like help, you know, that's one thing Dana said to us like when we were starting this is like he's like, you guys are a very well rehearsed band. This is at the very beginning. He's like, you guys are a very well rehearsed band. We're not talking about taking you guys from like 75% there to 100%. We're talking about taking you from like 99.2% there to 100%. But that last 0.8% that's what separates the great bands from just good bands.
Yeah, that's where the discomfort lives.
Yes. Yep. And he's like, another phrase he uses, he's very good for dispensing sayings, is like being willing to look under the carpet for things that nobody else wants to see,
Hmm.
you know, and like being willing to go there. And like we had a conversation today, we had a practice last night. It's like, okay, we got to start recording all the practices because we got to ration it up. It's not there yet, and I'm like, good. I need that. Tell me that. Yes. Don't just tell me it's great, like, and that
Yeah.
becomes, I think if you can help people get in that mindset, that's where the standard is raised. It's just realizing we're all on the same path. Just some of us are down further, but it's not like we're better or worse. We're just, if you're on that path and you're serious about that life and about being great, then you have to be a little bit fanatical about it. And you have to be like willing to be, uncomfortable and have people tell you you're not there because in your mind, you're not there anyway. So you might as well just own it.
Yeah, I think a lot of, and I say this with all due respect to fellow musicians, and I include myself in this mix, but I think a lot of musicians struggle with being honest with themselves
Hmm.
sometimes.
Right.
And it's painful that moment when they finally are.
Right. Well, and it's understandable from a human perspective because when you're creating something like that, it's very emotionally close. It's part of you, and it's kind of like you raised a little kid and put him out in the world and everybody hates him. You're just like, oh,
Right.
well, you feel responsible for that. It hurts. And those things, excuse me. I mean, those feelings, you still have those feelings when but you just have to be like, okay, I'm not going to let those feelings determine how I act or react or what I do after this, because everybody feels a sense of some sense of rejection if you put something out there and somebody's like, no, you need to fix this and this, and you feel like, well, I've just gotten rejected.
Yeah.
But it's if you can get out, if you don't get in your feelings, if you can stay out of, stay away from getting in your feelings about it, then that's where real growth happens. You know,
For sure. For sure. So, you take that growth that you've had, 1997 Matt to 2025 Matt, beyond streams and ticket counts, how do you quantify success in the music business now versus how you quantified it back then?
well, back then I think there was a part of me that I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted everybody to adore me and say I was the greatest songwriter ever, and like but my identity was too wrapped up into it, and like I had to realize my identity comes from my relationship with God, not from music. And so that was a big turning point for me. But between that and now, I mean, I think I wanted to make it, whatever that meant, but
Mhm.
now I don't really have that um desire or need to really make it because I've already been successful, but professionally. And so I don't, it's not like I need this to happen for me to be able to, afford to do this or whatever. It's just doing it out of just purely for the love of it. And
Yeah.
what would be success would just be like if we could just travel around the Midwest and play to 200 or 300 people everywhere we went, I would be completely ecstatic with that. I don't care about playing Wembley Stadium. I mean, that'd be get to that level. There's a lot of headaches that come with it.
You wouldn't turn it down though either.
Oh no, hell no, no, no. I mean, there's part of me that feels like I was made to do that.
Right.
Like I was made to play in front of thousands of people. Like I don't. That's of course I get nervous, but I've always been like that. And so even when I was a little kid, I mean, always performing.
Yes.
So
There's a great quote. One of my most favorite recent singer-songwriters is a guy by the name of Gregory Alan Isaacoff. I don't know if you've ever listened to his stuff,
yeah,
but I highly encourage you to check his stuff out. I'll send you a link or whatever.
okay,
But he has a line in a song that I think applies to so many different avenues of life, but it's so simple. And it goes, if it wasn't for second chances, we'd all be alone.
yeah,
You
that's
know, and
yep,
and I think that's a reality is like sometimes you have to give yourself that grace to like step out and do that new thing or try the new project or try something as ambitious as starting a record label with your producer,
yeah.
you know?
I know it's yeah. I didn't. It's one of those things that those things started. When they start happening, you either go with it or you retreat. And I don't. I guess I never had the retreat. That had never even thought that never came to my mind. I was like, no, why not? I mean, like, and you know, when you turn, I don't know how old you are, but I'm in my 50s. I'm
Hmm.
still early 50s technically, but I am in my 50s. But when you get older, you're like, you know, what do I want to spend the rest of my life doing? You know, what should I you realize how precious a resource time is. And you're like, I, at least for me, become less and less willing to waste my time on anything.
Yep.
Like, and that's people that are a waste of my time, whatever. Like, if you're all you're doing is draining time for me, I can't have you in my life. You know,
Yep.
I don't wish ill will on you, but I cannot have you in my life because I am not about that. Like, and it's weird because with the label, my company has gotten me to a point where I can spend time working on the label and spend resources and really trying to make this happen. It's like I'm busier than I was when I wasn't doing this. Like you know, like I'm not doing as much with the company as I was, but now this is taking even more time, you know. So it's
Hmm.
like, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't. What am I going to do? Sit around and you know play Nintendo? I mean, you know, you might as well do something. You know, if you're not learning and growing, you're just waiting to die.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. Yes. You know, I'm kind of living in that a similar moment in regard to this whole podcast thing. Like, you know, for years when I walked away from doing music, I had friends going, "Ah, you'll be back, you'll be back," and I'm like, no, I was really comfortable with the way it ended, and I'm very glad of it. And you know, when the pandemic happened, and I just decided, well, I needed to do something creative again. I never knew that I would have as much love doing this as I have. So
That's awesome.
this is kind of my second chance, but I echo your sentiment about time because I've made the argument several times with people where I said time is the most valuable asset in the world because once you give it, you don't get that back. And you have to take that same consideration with other people. If somebody gives you their time, they're not going to give that back. It's the greatest gift you can ever receive.
Yeah.
So
Well, speaking of that, thanks for having me on.
well, I was just gonna say my closing question is kind of the big philosophical one, and you know I try and I stay away from
Is this one of
anything
those questions you ask everybody, or? Oh,
Yes,
okay, okay.
yes. But I stay away from the controversial thing because my goal is to put forth positive content, and that is, what's your advice based on your experience for making the world a better place tomorrow than what it is today?
Um, be your real self, and if you give yourself or your time to someone, give it wholeheartedly. And I don't know, be authentic and never be satisfied.
Love that. Love that. Matt, why don't you tell everybody where they can find your music and more about Omaha Music Group?
Okay, you can go to spacetoplayband.com. You can go to obviously our Facebook, Instagram. We are on all the streaming platforms. We've released 3 singles. So they are all on Spotify, you know, Apple Music, all the YouTube. There's lyric videos. And we are releasing our first record on September 12th, and we're playing at the Slowdown. Um, we have a band called Virgin Mary Pistol Grip. They're opening, and then a guy named Jeremy Mercy is playing acoustic. And one cool thing is the guy that played the steel guitar on one of the songs on the record is Matt Beck, and he is the guitar player in Matchbox 20.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he knows Dana because they played together on Broadway, and
Oh, that's awesome.
they played in the Broadway version of Tommy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so he was Pete Townsend, and I
Oh,
guess Dana was
cool.
Keith Moon. I mean, you know, but so when we needed steel guitar, Dana's, and he's so like this. He's not a name dropper, but you know that dude knows way more people than he's letting on.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I'll just ask my friend Matt. I'm like, who? Matt Beck? Matt? He's like, Matt Beck. I'm like, who's that? He's like, he plays with Rob Thomas. I'm like, Rob Thomas. He's like, yeah, he's in that band. I'm like, Matchbox 20? He's like, yeah, Matchbox 20. I'm like, what? Like, so yeah, and so I'm flying him in, and he's coming in. He's going to play
Oh,
the steel
sweet.
guitar on that song and he's going to play on a couple other songs too, just so, you know, he's not just coming halfway across the country to play one song. Yeah, so he's coming out, and so it's going to be exciting. We're putting a lot into the stage lighting, everything, video content. I mean, we're trying to make this like
It's
next
a
level, and that's
production,
what I
man.
mean, like raise the standard, you know.
Heck yeah.
So what I expect to happen is people walk away from that after that show being like, "What in the hell did I just walk? What?"
Yeah.
You know.
Yes.
That's what I want to happen. That's my goal.
Oh, dude, I absolutely love that. I love the fact that we finally got to sit down and have this conversation and get
Yeah.
to know each other. I tell you what, there were about 5 or 6 things I didn't point out that we had other parallels on. We'll have to talk about that at another time.
Yeah, we'll do another one.
Oh, absolutely. I am so excited. September 12th
Yes.
at the Slowdown Space to Play album release party. Guys, come on. Why wouldn't you go? This is going to be a great show. I am so excited to have had this conversation with you, Matt.
Well, even if you don't come to this first one, we'll get you there eventually.
That's right. That's right. Matt, thank you so much for doing the show. The world's a much better place with you in it, my friend.
Hey, thank you, Mike. You too, bro.